The foundation of everything, the rescue, the ambush, the escape, was a lie. Masuyo had faked her imprisonment. Steers had either known or been deceived. And the attack on Steers' life, the severed head, the assassination attempt, all of it pointed to Masuyo as the real enemy. He told Steers. She closed her eyes and jerked her head sideways once, then twice, the same tell she had shown when confronted with unbearable truths. "I know," she said. "I have always known." She did not explain. She only said that she would bury the truth with the nanny. But the caretaker was already dead. Nash found her in her locked room, foam on her lips, a cup of poisoned tea on the table. Steers refused to call the police. She washed the body herself, dressed the nanny in a white kimono, and applied makeup with a steady hand learned in childhood. They drove to a remote patch of land, and Steers dug the grave herself. Nash helped lower the body into the earth. He saved a sample of the tea in a sealed container. Steers knelt in front of the fresh grave and said words he could not fully hear. When she stood, her eyes were dry. "My mother did this," she said. "I am sure of it." Nash believed her. The lie that breaks everything. Red Temple arrived at the estate, summoned by Steers. He looked thinner, more desperate. Steers confronted him about failing to find Walter Nash. "You have 1 month," she said, "or I will do something you will find irreversible." Nash watched Temple's fear and felt the trap closing. Temple knew the old Nash, the man who had been a mild executive. He could blow the whole operation. But Temple had his own secrets. Danai, Angie, Temple's half-sister, told him she had seen Dillon Hope come out of a room next to his, push his car silently down the driveway, and pretend to go to bed. Temple's suspicion crystallized. He lifted Nash's wine glass from the dinner table and sealed it in a plastic baggie. The next day, he confronted Nash in the garage. "You're Walter Nash," Temple said. "I have your fingerprints on the glass." Nash did not bother denying it. He grabbed Temple by the throat and slammed him against the wall. "What do you want?" "I want out," Temple gasped. "Out from Steers. Out from Mindy. I want to disappear." Nash released him. They made a deal. Nash would use shock to fake Temple's death. Temple would help Nash bring down Steers. They would keep each other's secrets, but Temple had one more confession. "I killed my father," he said. "I threw him off the balcony, and I am sorry about Maggie. I did not know about the plan." Nash did not believe him, but he nodded anyway. The final admission, Steers called Nash to a picnic in a remote meadow. She wore white caprice and an aquamarine sweater, a baseball cap covering her scarred neck. She looked almost ordinary. "I know about Masuyo's visits to the Chinese front company," she said. "I know about Temple's plan to disappear. I know everything." Nash said nothing. "I also know that my original plan was to leave you and Temple dead in Myanmar," she said. "I was going to let the ambush team kill you and make you the patsies. But then you saved my life, and I changed my mind." Nash stared at her. "And Masuyo is a Chinese plant. She never was my mother. She was my handler, sent to build an empire for Beijing. And you rescued her anyway." Steers smiled, bitter. "I rescued her to keep her close, to watch her, and to give her something she did not expect." "What? The opportunity to fail." Nash studied the woman across the picnic blanket. The scarred crime lord, the betrayed daughter, the CIA double agent who had reduced fentanyl deaths and sold her empire for $1. She was not the monster he had sworn to destroy. She was something far more complicated, and he was no longer sure he could kill her. The thread that holds. The estate was quiet in the weeks after the picnic. Nash walked the perimeter daily, checking the fence lines and the guard rotations, but his mind was elsewhere. Steers had admitted she planned to leave him dead in Myanmar. She had also admitted she changed her mind, but that admission did not erase the memory of Maggie's ring in the basement box. He could not forgive her. He could not forget her, but he could not kill her either. Thura came to him one afternoon with a phone in his hand and a look Nash had not seen before. Fear mixed with certainty. "My cousin sent this," Thura said, "from the prison." The photo showed a white-haired woman in a courtyard, drinking tea under an umbrella. She looked comfortable. She looked like someone who was not a prisoner. Thura's cousin, the former guard, had written a message. Masuyo was never here. She visited twice, both times by helicopter. She was never a prisoner. Nash sat down. The foundation of the entire rescue, the ambush, the blood, the bomb, had been built on a lie. Steers had claimed her mother was held by enemies, but Masuyo had never been held at all. She had walked into that prison as a visitor, not a captive. He took the photo to Steers. She looked at it for a long time, then closed her eyes and jerked her head sideways once, then twice. The tell, the one she used when the truth hit bone. I know, she said. I have always known. Then why did you send us to rescue her? Because I had to, she said. Because if I did not play my part, Connor Lord would have killed me. And because I wanted her close enough to watch. Watch for what? Steers looked at him. To see if she would try to kill me again. She walked away then, and Nash let her go. He had the sample of the nanny's tea locked in his drawer. He had the evidence of the Myanmar lie, but he did not yet have a plan for what to do with any of it. That night, he found Thura packing a bag. I cannot stay, Thura said. If Masuyo is a Chinese plant, then everyone in this house is in danger. I have a green card now. I will go to Chicago and find a job. I will disappear. Nash wanted to stop him, but he could not. Thura had killed for him, bled for him, and now he was saving himself. It was the right choice. They shook hands at the service gate. Thura drove away in a rented sedan, and Nash watched the taillights disappear into the dark. He was alone now. Truly alone, except for Steers, and except for Temple, who knew his name. Episode 3, Vertical Bar, The Final Gambit. Still Dillon Hope on paper. But now fully Walter Nash, again to himself, and to Steers, the man who lost everything and found a way back. The estate had gone quiet after the picnic. Nash walked the perimeter daily, checking fence lines and guard rotations, but his mind was elsewhere. Steers had admitted she planned to leave him dead in Myanmar. She had also admitted she changed her mind. That admission did not erase the memory of Maggie's ring in the basement box, but it had cracked something open inside him. Then, Steers called him to the car and drove him to Hiroko's grave. She had reflective sunglasses on, so Nash could not see her eyes. He drove straight, following her directions. When she said Dailu, her mother's real Chinese name, he did not flinch. That was the giveaway. He knew the name, and she knew he knew it. Drive me to where Hiroko-san lies, she said, and he turned right at the next road. At the gravesite, she held a gun to the back of his head. Nash kept his hands on the wheel. You have known all along, she said. You knew my mother's name. You knew the rescue was staged. You knew I planned to leave you in Myanmar. And still you stayed. I stayed because I wanted to kill you, Nash said. I stayed because I thought you murdered my daughter. Steers lowered the gun. And now? Nash reached into his jacket and pulled out the locket he had carried since the safe house. He opened it and showed her the photo of Maggie, the one Judith had given him years ago. A tiny face with her mother's eyes. This is why I came, he said. This is why I changed my face and my name. This is why I let you cut me. Because I believed you took her from me. Steers looked at the photo. Her hand trembled. I did not kill your daughter, she said, but I ordered her abduction, and I let you believe she was dead. That is the same thing, isn't it? Nash did not answer. He was still holding the locket when his phone rang. It was the guide. The massacre. The guide's voice was thin, ragged. They came, many men, automatic weapons. Everyone is dead. Where are you? On the ground. I'm hit. They are coming for you next. The line went dead. Nash grabbed Steers and pulled her into the car. He drove without headlights, taking back roads, his mind racing. The estate was a kill zone. The Burmese hunter was down. The guards were dead. Whoever had attacked knew where they were and when. Steers sat in the passenger seat, her face pale, her composure shattered. The chess master, she said. He knew I would betray him. He sent his people to clean up. We do not know that, Nash said. Who else? He did not correct her. He was already running through the alternatives. Steers' mother, the Chinese, the cartel leaders who had voted for the new structure. Any of them could have ordered the hit, but Steers was probably right. The man in the helicopter played chess, and they had just become pieces he needed off the board. Nash ditched the car at a truck stop. He used a backup credit card and a false identity. Shock had prepared for him to rent a sedan. He disposed of both their phones, bought burners, and drove until the gas gauge hit empty. They crossed into Louisiana by morning. News of the massacre broke on every channel. The FBI confirmed 17 dead, including the entire security detail and 2 household staff. The guide was listed as critically wounded, but stable. Steers' mother was not among the dead. Morris called Nash on the encrypted app. You and Steers are not suspects, he said. But the buyer has put a bounty on her head. $2 million, dead or alive, and he has her mother. Masuyo, Steers' mother, is with the chess master? Looks like it. She walked out of the estate 10 minutes before the shooters arrived. She knew. Nash ended the call and looked at Steers. She was asleep in the passenger seat, her arms crossed, her scarred neck exposed. He saw her for what she was now, a woman who had been a weapon for other people, her entire life. A woman who had tried to be something else and failed. He drove on. The safe house. The house in the Garden District was off the grid. No deed under Steers' name, no utilities, no mail. It belonged to a shell company that had dissolved 3 years ago. Steers had bought it with cash, a contingency she had never expected to use. They arrived at dusk. Nash swept the perimeter, checked the windows, and found the spare key under a loose brick. The interior was Spartan. A couch, a table, a bed, a fireplace. No photographs, no personal effects. A ghost house. That night, Nash made a call to shock. Temple was still training, still learning, still waiting for his new identity. Nash told him to stay put and keep Temple quiet. Then he called Morris and asked for something he had never requested before. "I need a way to kill the buyer," he said. Morris was silent for a long time. "You cannot. He is too protected. But I can give you something better, a way to destroy him. Tell me, not over the phone. We will meet when it is safe." Nash hung up. He sat in the dark and listened to Steers breathing in the other room. The house had no heat, and the winter air seeped through the walls. He heard her get up and move to the fireplace. "Come here," she said. "It is cold." He went to her. They sat side by side, watching the flames, not touching, not speaking. The silence was not comfortable, but it was not hostile either. It was the silence of two people who had run out of things to hide. The storm. The next day, a storm rolled in. Rain hammered the roof, and the wind tore through the oak trees in the garden. Nash found Steers in the basement, which he had thought was empty. It was not empty. She was training. A boxing dummy hung from a beam, and she was working it with a pair of custom knives, her movements fluid, precise, deadly. She spun and kicked, her body a machine of violence. "Your mother made you train," Nash said, "every day." She did not stop. She said weakness was a choice. She was wrong. Steers stopped. The knives hung at her sides. Was she? "I am alive because I learned to fight. She is alive because she never learned to stop." They went upstairs and made tea. The storm raged outside, and the house shook. Nash told her about his childhood, about the father who had taught him breathing exercises in a prisoner of war camp, about the mother who had died too soon. Steers told him about the plane crash that had killed her father and scarred her body, about the poisoner who had made her run into thunderstorms to build endurance. "Your mother did that?" "Every time. She said fear was a luxury I could not afford. And you believed her. I believed everything she told me. That is what children do." They sat in the dark. Nash watched the rain run down the window. He thought about Maggie, about the photo in his locket, about the box of her things in Steers' basement. He thought about the woman beside him, who had been a monster and a victim and something else he could not name. He looked at Steers. She was asleep with her arm exposed, the scarred skin visible in the firelight. He lifted her arm gently and placed it on the blanket. She did not wake. The photo. The next morning, Steers was different. The vulnerability of the night before had hardened into something harder. She accused him of spying, of feeding information to the FBI, of pretending to care while she led him to his real target. "You are no different from my mother," she said. "Your mother poisoned Hiroko. That does not make me wrong about you." Nash had no answer. She was right. He had been spying. He had been feeding information to Morris. He had been pretending to be her friend while building a case against her. But something had shifted in the basement, in the storm, in the quiet hours when she had told him about the plane crash and the thunder. He went to his room and sat on the bed. He pulled out the Glock he had taken from the safe house's hidden compartment. He looked at the photo of Maggie in his locket. Then he looked at the gun. He racked the slide. He put the barrel to his chest. The door opened. Steers stood in the frame. She moved slowly, carefully, like she was approaching a wounded animal. "Put it down," she said. "I cannot do this anymore," Nash said. "I cannot be Dillon Hope. I cannot be the man who killed for you. I cannot be the father who let his daughter die. Dillon, she said. Wait. She pulled out her phone and scrolled. She held it up so he could see. The photo showed a woman in a diner, drinking coffee, reading a book. She had short brown hair and a smile that Nash had seen 1,000 times. Maggie, alive. Nash dropped the gun. The truth. They made love that night. It was slow and sensual, nothing like the ferocity of their first attempt. Afterward, they lay in the dark, and Steers told him everything. The CIA had approached her 3 years ago. They knew about her mother's connection to the Chinese, knew about the empire she was building, knew about the chess master. They offered her a deal. Cooperate, and when the time came, she would walk free, defy them, and she would spend the rest of her life in a concrete box. She took the deal. The fentanyl reduction was real. The labs in Latin America were her way of starving the prison lord's supply chain. The sale to the buyer was a gambit to get inside his operation. The fake rescue of Steers' mother was meant to keep the poisoner close, to prevent her from going fully rogue. Maggie was never supposed to be part of this, Steers said. But the chess master found out about my CIA connection. He ordered me to target your daughter as a test of loyalty. I had her abducted, but I did not have her killed. I handed her to the U.S. Marshals. She is in witness protection. And the ring, the clothing, the DNA? The CIA faked it. They planted her ring and hair alongside bones from a Jane Doe. They made the evidence airtight because they needed you to believe she was dead. Why? Because they needed you to come after me. They needed you to be the weapon that would bring me in. They knew you would never stop hunting the person who killed your daughter. Nash sat up. The anger was there, cold and pure, but it was no longer aimed at Steers. It was aimed at the system that had used him, the mother who had used her daughter, the master who had played them all. The prison lord said I was a chess piece. He said, you are, we all are, but the game is not over. Steers told him the rest of the plan, the warehouse, the staged deaths, the FBI raid. The buyer would be there, and Steers' mother, and everyone who needed to fall, but they needed a double agent inside his organization. They needed someone the chess master would trust. They needed Temple. The coercion. Shock. Called Nash the next morning. Your boy's gone. He took one of my guns. Nash did not hesitate. He knew where Temple was going. They drove to Temple's estate. The gates were open, the house dark. Nash let himself in through a window. He had noted during his earlier visits. Mindy was in the bedroom, pretending to sleep. Nash told her to lie still and wait. He heard Temple come in. He heard him take a crowbar from the floor safe. He heard him climb the stairs. When Temple entered the bedroom and put a pillow over Mindy's face, Nash grabbed him from behind and threw him to the floor. You were going to murder her, Nash said. She knows I killed my father. She confessed to you. I had to. You had to cover one murder by committing another. Temple did not answer. He was breathing hard, his eyes wild. Then Steers walked in. Temple tried to expose Nash's identity, but Steers cut him off. I know who he is, she said. Then you know he is the enemy. You know he is working with the FBI. I know he is working with me. They laid out the plan. Temple would pose as a loyal CEO to the buyer. He would infiltrate the warehouse, where the chess master was preparing his next shipment. He would feed them information, and when the moment came, he would help them spring the trap. Shock rigged a blood packet and a retractable blade. Nash said, when you hit me, I'll go down, but I'll get back up. The cut has to look real. Can you do that? Temple swallowed. I can do it, and if I refuse, Temple asked. Steers looked at him. Then I send the recording of your confession to every law enforcement agency in the country. And you spend the rest of your life in a cell, knowing that your sister will grow up alone. Temple agreed. The warehouse. A week later, Nash and Steers were brought into the warehouse with hoods over their heads and shackles on their wrists. They had let themselves be captured, following the plan they had built with Temple, Shock, and Morris. The chess master was there. The poisoner was there. The warehouse was full of product and guards and the machinery of death. 2 chess pieces I did not expect, the prison lord said. But here we are. Temple stepped forward. He looked at Nash, and Nash saw the question in his eyes. Is this real? Do I have to do this? Nash nodded, imperceptibly. Temple understood. You want to see loyalty? Temple said to the buyer. I will show you loyalty. He pulled the knife. He drove it into Nash's abdomen. He moved it side to side, mimicking the technique Shock had taught him. Blood erupted from the wound. Real blood, from a sealed packet inside Nash's jacket, but the chessmaster did not know that. Nash crumpled. He hit the concrete and did not move. Steers' mother turned to her. You see, everyone leaves you. Everyone dies around you. The man in the helicopter raised the gun. He shot Steers in the chest. She fell beside Nash, her body going limp. The doors exploded inward. The aftermath. FBI agents poured through the breach. Morris led the charge, his weapon raised. The prison lord tried to run, but there was nowhere to go. The warehouse was surrounded. Morris found Nash lying on the floor. He knelt and pressed his hand to Nash's chest. Nice trick, Morris said. The packet. Nash gasped. The knife. Temple did good. Nash sat up. The blood was fake, the wound a hollow handle. He looked at Steers, who was rising beside him. She had worn a vest under her clothes, and the bullet had been stopped. The poisoner, she asked. Gone? Morris said. She slipped out during the chaos. But we will find her. They did not find her. They did not find her that night. But a week later, Morris visited the chess master in federal custody. He walked into the cell where the fallen mastermind sat, shackled to a bolt in the floor, still wearing the prison jumpsuit, still wearing the smug expression of a man who believed he had escape routes. Morris sat down. He opened a file. He noted the date, the time, the people in the room, into a recorder on the table. You have been charged with murder, Morris said, and conspiracy to distribute controlled substances, and trafficking, and a dozen other counts your lawyers will spend years trying to untangle. The buyer tried to smile. You have nothing. I was in a warehouse. Temple brought me there. Temple killed those two, not me. We have video, Morris said. NSA backdoors got through your jamming. We have you shooting Victoria Steers in the chest. We have you ordering the hit on her estate. We have Walter Nash's complete testimony, every email, every recording, every document he collected over 2 years. The smugness cracked. I want my lawyer. Your lawyer is public defender. Your assets are seized. Your allies have turned. And your bail has been denied. Morris leaned forward. I am told to tell you, checkmate. He raised his middle finger. That is for Walter Nash, the man who most definitely got the last laugh. Morris stood, collected his file, and walked out. The cell door closed behind him. The funeral. Walter Nash sat in the back pew of the church and watched them bury him. The casket was closed. Maggie and Judas sat in the front row, holding hands. Shock was there, standing at the back, his eyes on the door. After the funeral, Nash stayed in the church. He waited until the last mourner left. Then, he walked to the casket and placed his hand on the wood. Shock found him there. You cannot tell them. I know. They will never understand. They do not have to. Nash looked at the photo of Maggie he had kept in his locket. She was alive. That was enough. He could not be in her life. But she was alive. He had to live with that. He left the church and drove to the apartment he had prepared. It was small, furnished with an easel in the corner and a bike with a basket in the hallway. He had bought art supplies, a planter for the balcony, a garden hose. He waited. The last day. 2 weeks later, the federal prison in Texas received a visitor for the inmate in solitary. The prison visiting room was a long, narrow space divided by a plexiglass barrier. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. A corrections officer stood at the door, arms crossed. The visitor wore a blonde wig and glasses, a different walk, a different shape. She sat down in the booth. The inmate on the other side was small and frail, nothing like the figure who had commanded empires from a prison cell in Myanmar. Steers' mother smiled when she recognized her daughter. You came. I knew you would. Steers placed a small plastic tube on the table. Lethal injection or this, I will leave it to you. The smile did not fade. The poisoner took the tube and drank. The poison worked in seconds. Steers retrieved the empty tube with a handkerchief. She did not cry. Nash waited by the car outside the prison gates. The walls were brick, tall, weathered. Guards carried rifles on the parapets. A grim place, a place that sucked hope out of the air for miles in every direction. The gates opened, and she walked out. Victoria Steers had a buzz cut now, and her arms were covered in the same scars she had worn for years. She wore an ankle monitor under her jeans, a constant reminder of the terms. Nash pushed off the fender and walked to her. "Nash," she said. "Jenny Lee," he said. "Nice name. The government gave it to me. I know, I helped pick it." They drove in silence. He pulled up to the apartment building and helped her carry her bags up the stairs. She stood in the living room and looked at the easel, the art supplies, the planter. "You did this." "I had help." She walked to the easel and touched the blank canvas. Then she went to the balcony and looked at the garden. The soil was fresh, the seeds not yet planted. "Where will you go?" she asked. "I will not go far. There is a guest room down the hall. I will be there if you need me. And your family?" "They are safe. They think I'm dead. That is how it has to be." She nodded. She understood. She had been dead too, in a way. They had both been buried and had climbed back out. "I cannot promise you anything," she said. "I cannot promise I will be good, or kind, or even safe to be around. I know, but I can promise I will try." Nash looked at her. The scarred crime lord, the double agent who had saved his daughter, the woman who had been a weapon and a victim and something else entirely. "That is enough," he said. She did not answer. She took his hand, and they walked into the apartment together. The afternoon light fell through the windows, and for the first time in years, neither of them was running. Afternoon light fell through the window of the small apartment. A blank canvas waited on an easel. A flower pot sat on the balcony. A bicycle with a basket stood in the hall. Victoria Steers showed the monitor on her ankle and said she would try. Nash said he lived down the hall and didn't know what would happen between them. The story stops there, not revenge completed, not justice achieved, but an open ending that refuses to close. This is not accidental. David Baldacci has said publicly that creating the Walter Nash series was a deliberate challenge. Throw an ordinary man with no military training, no law enforcement background, no special skills, a former finance executive, into hell and see if he can climb out. This creative path is the first in Baldacci's 30-year career. Amos Decker has perfect memory. Will Roby has elite assassin training. But Nash has nothing except rage and the muscle memory built from 18 months of brutal training. Baldacci deliberately placed an ordinary man in this extreme situation. No. To write a satisfying revenge fantasy. But to ask, can a person who has completely become someone else ever find himself again? The most common comparison for this book is The Count of Monte Cristo, but it deliberately subverts that classic ending. At the end of Monte Cristo, Dantes completes his revenge, walks toward the woman he loves, and leaves us with his famous line, "All human wisdom is contained in these two words, wait and hope." That is a 19th century romantic close. Nash completes his revenge, but he does not walk toward the woman he loves. He walks toward the woman he was supposed to kill. He claims nothing. The novel refuses to give a comforting terminus. Baldacci does not give the reader an ending. He gives the reader a man standing in front of a door that is not yet closed. Baldacci thus reverses the most famous ending in revenge literature, not to be cruel, but to be honest. Dantes gets his name back. Nash cannot. When he looks in the mirror, Dillon Hope looks back. The man who walked into that Hong Kong penthouse is gone. The apartment with the easel and the bicycle is not a promise of happiness. It is an admission that there is no way back, only forward into unfamiliar territory. Baldacci designed this not as a narrative failure, but as a philosophical fidelity to the question he set out to ask. Can a person become someone else and still remain himself? The answer, after 3 volumes, is no, but the person he became might, in the end, be worth becoming.